Hello and welcome everybody to the second webinar hosted by Blue Corona in partnership with the ACCA. I'm Brandon Doyle and today we're talking about website speed and security, more specifically what it is and how it can help you measurably improve your ROI from virtually any digital marketing campaign. Today I'm joined by Tyler Yost, one of my fellow colleagues. I'm here in our Blue Corona Charlotte office and our Director of Client Services. Welcome, Tyler.
Hey, Brandon, good to be here.
Let me tell people a little bit about us, Tyler, what we do here at Blue Corona before we jump right in. So for everyone who hasn't attended one of our prior webinars, we help small and medium-sized businesses grow faster than their competition using next-gen technology. As a six-time Inc. 5000 recipient, we first opened our doors in 2008, and since then we've helped hundreds of small businesses grow through what we consider providing the highest value marketing services to our clients. Today, if you have a question, please type it into the questions box. You might have to click that little triangle in the GoToWebinar panel so it points downwards instead of sideways, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. So Tyler, can you tell us about website speed and security?
Yeah, Brandon, absolutely. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm really excited to share a little bit about this. At Blue Corona, really what undergirds our success is not only a data-driven approach, but also applying that to what your competition looks like. And as we start to talk about website speed and security and how they might be sabotaging your sales, this will all come together in a minute here. I think it's important to take a step back and look at and understand that there's a lot of people making decisions about you and your company based on your website's presence. So they're making decisions whether to become a customer of yours, whether to come work for you, whether to invest in your business if that's what you're looking forward to, all based on your web presence. Now, it's not the only thing that they're using, but it is part of the decision-making process. And this is usually one of the aha moments we get as we're talking about this with business owners and contractors. And one of the more interesting pieces is that they're not only making decisions about you based on those things, but they're also making decisions about you and your competitors, whether to come work for you, whether to hire you, or whether to invest in your business. And we're all competing for those same set of resources. And so, as we've been doing this for now a decade, and one of the most common insights that we get out of this is just how little business owners and CEOs really know about their competition. And this one really rung a bell with me, that high school football teams know more about their rivals than do most businesses. And so today, as we get into talking about website speed and website security, I want to talk about that really in the context of a competitive landscape. And so, like I mentioned, what really undergirds our success here is not only using data to make all of our decisions, but also using competitive data to be able to figure out what can we do to outsmart the competition. And so, to do that, we're going to need a little bit of a framework. What we've understood is there is now an ocean of data that exists out there, and most business owners don't have the time to even try to figure out how is it that we navigate it. And so what we've gone ahead and done is we've created an initial framework, and I really would call it a summary framework for digital competitive analysis to be able to get a brief understanding of what's happening in your marketplace, and then what you can do to take advantage of it. So website speed and website security are two parts of that. We're going to spend a lot of the time today to talk about it. But again, I wanted to set the stage so that everybody gets a little bit of an understanding together. And one of the more important parts about this framework is that we've used it to analyze over 2,000 different companies, and run them through this. So we have battle-hardened this framework. And so as we look at it, it has 5 key parts, and I just want to run through those briefly, and then we're going to spend the majority of the time here today talking about how website speed, website security, and a third part, actually mobile friendliness, is affecting your sales. Okay, so let's look at this framework. The first part that we look at is what we're calling tracking and analytics. And we see tracking and analytics as the net that surrounds your entire digital presence. So you don't know what you don't know if you're not tracking it. And it's everything, for us, it's really gets an output that looks a little bit something like this, where we're able to understand pretty quickly how many tools do you and your competitors have. And as we start to do that, we're able to get a really clear understanding of what kinds of tools do they have and what level of sophistication do they have. So in this instance, we see that companies B and C, two of your competitors, have a lot more tools than you do and may have a more sophisticated setup. And so what are they doing? And we can get all this information pretty quickly to start to understand what is it that they're doing and how can we take advantage of that. So that's the first part. The second part, and what we're going to spend the majority of the time today talking about, is what we call accessibility. And for us, accessibility has three key parts. It is looking at what your website speed, website's mobile friendliness, your website security. And our outputs, as we start to begin to get a summary level look of it, look a little bit like this, where we can understand how your company operates from a mobile friendliness perspective, from a website security perspective, and like we mentioned in the intro, how it looks from a speed perspective. So those are the first two parts, right? The tracking and analytics, the net that surrounds everything. Accessibility is looking at your website's speed, security, and mobile friendliness. And then we get to the third part, which is content. And really what's made our clients unbelievably successful over the last 10 years has been a clear content approach in helping them win in their local markets. And so our outputs, as we do an initial analysis, looks a little bit something like this, where we can understand what your company looks like, what the remaining companies in the marketplace look like, what they've done, and how we might be able to outsmart them. So we see here company C's got something big going on. They may have something wrong actually going on here in terms of number of pages that they have. But again, we can start to put all of these pieces together, tracking and analytics and accessibility and content, to be able to start to get a clear picture of what's happening in the marketplace and how do we take advantage of that. The third part is what we call search visibility. And so the majority of you on this call are probably very familiar with that. That's how well you rank on Google. And so for us, what we like to look at is we take a bucket of about 200 keywords, and we want to know how many of those are you on page 1 of Google for. The fact of the matter is fewer than 80% of all the clicks go on to page 2. And as we're talking about local service businesses and HVAC companies, those numbers are even higher. So less than 2% go to the second page. So being on the first page is very important. And by getting an understanding of how well you're doing there, that can again help inform your digital process and strategy. So as we start to look at that, we can start to pair some of these data points together to see, all right, we've got 19% search visibility. Company B here is 7, company C is 28, company D is 33%. If you remember back 2 slides ago, company C had a pretty significant number of pages, but they don't look to be too much better than we are in terms of search visibility. So they might be doing something incorrectly. Well, that gives us an opportunity to zoom past them. Let's let them throw good money after bad, and we're going to be intelligent about our decisions here. All right, so we've talked about tracking and analytics, accessibility, content, search visibility, and the last part that we look at is your social audience and reviews. And so in terms of social audience, we want to look at the size of your followerships. So if you're a residential HVAC company, Facebook's pretty important for you. If you're commercial, LinkedIn's important for you. If you're looking to hiring millennials, reviews on Glassdoor are very important. And so we take all of those into consideration as we're looking at this summary level framework. And the output looks something like this, where we're seeing how many Facebook followers do you have, how many LinkedIn followers do you have, how many employees do you have, and then we actually have a complement to this where we look at your reviews. So how well are you getting reviews on places like Facebook and Glassdoor and even Google Maps, right? Those are all important factors to what your presence online looks like. And so as we are able to, again, have this summary level framework, it becomes a lot easier to navigate all of these different data points across the web and start to get a concise view of what's going on. And by not only can we get really neat insights from one of them, we can actually get a 360-degree view pretty quickly of what your competitors are doing, and again, how we can outsmart them across all 5 of these. And so that's the way we really like to approach really the web and trying to win there, because again, everyone's making decisions whether to come work for you, whether to work with you as a company, as a customer, whether to invest in your business based on your digital presence. So it makes sense to understand, how does that even look like, and what can we do to take advantage of that? So like I mentioned, we're going to spend the rest of the time here today talking about accessibility. So as Brandon mentioned, if you've got a question, feel free to put it in that little questions box and hit that triangle to turn it to point downward. Because what we're going to talk about today is how websites' speed, mobile friendliness, and security are going to affect your sales. This is not some fluff piece. This has real business impact. So for those of you who are with us today, you're gonna be able to take something away from this that's going to have some real meaning for your business. So let's look at accessibility. Like I mentioned, accessibility has 3 parts: your website speed, your website mobile friendliness, and your website security. Now, all 3 of these have an impact on your sales. I'm going to say that one more time. All 3 of these have an impact on your sales, and we're going to go through how that is. Whether it's getting more people to your website, so more visitors equals more leads equals more sales, or improving your user experience, which equals more leads and more sales. All 3 of these actually cover both of those. We're going to talk through how that applies through this next section. So my favorite question as we jump into this is, what's the number 1 reason that people leave a website? And so what we found through a third-party research firm is that 40% of people will leave a website if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. 40% of consumers will abandon a website that takes longer than 3 seconds to load. Now, you may have seen this before if you've gone in and looked at your Google Analytics and you've seen a pretty high, what they call bounce rate. Well, that may have been due to a slow loading website. It may be due to a variety of other factors too, but as we went and tested this theory, we saw a pretty similar result. And so, again, we're looking at 60% of consumers will stay if it lasts longer than 3 seconds, but 40% will leave if it's longer than 3 seconds. So all that money we're spending to try to get people to the website, well, they're going to leave if it doesn't load quickly. And so what we did is we said, all right, well, of those 2,000 companies that we analyzed, like I talked about in the beginning, what percentage of them are faster than 3 seconds to load? Only 30% load faster than 3 seconds. So all the way up to 3.99 seconds, only 30% of them are faster than that. I mean, 70% are slower than 3 seconds. That means there's a good chance that you're in that bucket. And so what we've seen, and we'll talk about this as we go through a really specific example here, that getting that speed increase to beyond that 3 second mark, that's going to be where you start to see some big wins on a conversion rate perspective. Again, you're getting more visitors to turn into leads, and you're also getting, there also are some wins on getting you more visits from a Google organic perspective. So how do you measure this, right? How do we start to get an understanding of how fast you're loading? So if you're brand new to this and you've never tested your website before, the best place to start is by using Google's Pagespeed Insights tool. So if you are brand new to this tool is incredible to use. If you Google Pagespeed Insights, you'll get a little tool like this. You put your URL on the top, you click Analyze, and you're going to get some results. But even more importantly, what you're going to do is you're going to get a punch list of what you need to do to improve your website speed. So here's an example we're looking at here where the mobile speed's a 21, and you don't see the desktop speed here, but the desktop speed's a 37 out of 100. Google, again, gives you these ranges. It's pretty simple for anyone to understand a 0 to 100 scale. So mobile's 21, desktop's 37, and it actually gives you that clear punch list of what you need to do to improve that speed. Now, what's even better about this is you can click a little button at the bottom and email it to your web team to say, hey, you got to fix these things. So it makes it easy for you. Again, if you've never done this before and you've got a partner who's taking care of this, you go punch your URL in, click analyze, click that button, send to my webmaster at the bottom, and you can go bark up their tree to have them fix that for you. Now, if you're a little bit more sophisticated and you want to know exactly how fast you load, then I would use this next tool we're going to look at called GT Metrics. That's spelled as you see it in the top left corner here. And this is that same website that we just looked at ago that had a 21 on the desktop and a 37 on, or excuse me, a 21 on the mobile and a 37 on the desktop. This website takes 27.7 seconds to load, almost 30 seconds to load. You can go make a cup of coffee and a Keurig and come back before this website is done loading. What I really like about this tool, and this is what our team uses as we first start to tackle a client's website, is that it gives us that Google Pagespeed information. It also gives us a tool called Why Slow, which gives us some other insights. But what I most love about it is what's called a Waterfall Chart, which is that third tab there in the middle. And you can it'll actually show you how your website loads in order and what's causing those delays. So you can really hone in on the issues that are happening here. I also like it. I have an account where it can actually send me alerts every single day. We can actually send you alerts about your competition. So if you've got somebody that's got a really fast site, you can get alerted if they're making any changes or if they're not seeing some good changes there. And so as we're talking about this for the first time, we put together as part of our summary competitive analyses a report that looks something like this. So we can actually look at the Google Pagespeed Insights scores from a mobile friendliness and a desktop, from a mobile perspective and a desktop perspective across you and all of your competitors. So right here, you get a really interesting view that our company isn't the worst in the landscape. Company D looks to be pretty good. But then, if I add a different layer to that, nobody in this landscape actually is doing very well. What we always like to shoot for is at least an 80 on the desktop speed, that's that purple bar, and a 70 on the mobile speed. If you're not shooting for those, you're going to be behind. And so we had a client come to us, had somebody else code up their website, added a bunch of stuff to it, and this was their results. They saw 38 on the mobile and a 36 on the desktop. Very slow, very poor performance. And after some optimizations of their images and their code on their website, we were actually able to get their scores up to an 80 on the mobile and an 89 on the desktop. Before we made these updates, that website took 9.5, almost 10 seconds to load, 9.7 seconds to load. So if you remember back to the beginning, that 3-second mark is important. 40% of consumers will abandon a website if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. And after we made all these updates, after we were able to go from a 38, 36 to an 80, 89, we were able to get their website speed down to that 2.5-second mark. Okay, so this is vitally important. It reduced their bounce rate. It helped increase their number of leads that they were getting out of it just by focusing on getting that fast website. And this is something that so many people, business owners, forget about or throw by the wayside. They want to put more into their business. They want to go after more visits or more leads. And this is one of those silent killers that no one's talking about. So that's why I love bringing this to Speed Light, because it just provides so much additional value with some overhaul. Okay, so let's summarize what we learned here and what we went through in the accessibility site speed section. The first part, I've said it 3 or 4 times now. If your website takes longer than 3 seconds to load, what we've seen is at least 40% of your users will abandon your website, which means all that money you're putting in to get them to your website is just going right back out the door. And what we saw in our own analysis is of those 2,000 companies is that only 30% of those businesses, and a lot of them are HVAC businesses, only load faster than 3 seconds. So there's a good chance that you load slower than 3 seconds. So the first action to take there is test and address your site speed. If you're brand new to this, use that Google Pagespeed Insight tool to be able to garner some information. And if you've got a web partner, again, it's got that button at the bottom that I love where you can just ship your results over to them and say, hey, why is my website not as fast as it should be? And then as you're doing it, obviously implement the recommendations. And then one of the important pieces here that I think often gets overlooked, and really our mantra here at Blue Corona is you got to track, test, tweak, and repeat. And so track is understanding what's happening with your site speed, whether it be Google or GT metrics. Test, make some of those adjustments that they recommend, and then make additional tweaks as time goes on. Oftentimes, business owners, especially busy HVAC owners in the summer, really want a simple fix and they don't want to come back to it. And that's really where we always want to continue to monitor what's happening with the website speed. If you're on a shared server with GoDaddy, which is something we never recommend, that's something that your website speed could change overnight without you knowing it. And so there's a lot of different moving parts that go into it. So it's always important to continue to track, test, tweak, and repeat. All right, so we covered website speed. We're going to talk briefly about mobile friendliness, and then we're going to talk about a new one, which is website security. All right, so how much traffic do you think comes from mobile devices? And as we looked at it, the 2016 numbers were that 57% of all traffic came from mobile devices in the United States, and 11% came from tablets. So combine the two of those, and you're looking at about 2/3. For all the HVAC companies that are our clients, getting closer to a 50-50 split. Some have closer to an 80-20 split, 80% mobile, 20% desktop. So it's really important that you start to get an understanding of how many people are coming to your website from each of those areas. We're at the 10th anniversary of the iPhone. So smartphones are a ubiquitous part of our daily life. And as we look at, a need-based service like HVAC, it's so important to be where your customers are. And so that's actually why we design all of our websites now at Blue Corona to be what we call mobile first, because we've seen this consistently time and time again where there's just so much traffic coming from mobile now as that's been growing, and how do we make sure that we're attending to that appropriately. So if you're not familiar with mobile friendliness, just really briefly, on the left is a mobile unfriendly website, which you have to do that pinch and zoom activity where you've got to go in and find all the little parts. And on the right is a mobile friendly website where it's very easy to use, very simple to understand. And you can, if you're not mobile friendly, my punchline here is become mobile friendly like yesterday. You need, you're being detrimented in your conversion rates. I can guarantee that, and you're not getting as many visits as you can get from not being mobile friendly. And so what we saw in our analysis of those 2,000 websites is that 24%, almost a quarter of them, are still not mobile friendly. And what we see is, as we're putting together the summary competitive analyses, what we see is we're either in markets that have all of the members are, all the landscape members are mobile friendly, or there's a few that aren't. It's very rarely just one. It's either you're in or you're out. But if you aren't mobile friendly, I've got news for you that Google made it a requirement to be mobile friendly back in 2015. So we're like 2.5 years behind that. If you aren't mobile friendly, it's time to get mobile friendly. I don't care if you're B2B and you don't think anybody uses your website from their mobile phone, or again, commercial contractor, they do. And so it's important to make sure your user's experience is there. And what's actually happening is Google made it a requirement on their mobile algorithm in 2015. Well, now they're pushing that mobile algorithm into their desktop algorithm. So you could be out of visits and activity there, just because you don't have a mobile friendly website. So like I mentioned, as we look at it, the outputs look something like this. So we always like to look at it in comparison to what's happening in the competitive landscape. Like I mentioned, sometimes it's more than one member of the competitive landscape that's got an unfriendly website, if you will, but there's a few in there. If you're in this case, the good news is that you don't have to be the landscape laggard. You can let company C be the landscape laggard. But if any alternative is that you're in a landscape like this, well, this is where it's important to make sure that you keep a close eye on that, or you have somebody who's doing that for you. Oftentimes there are subtle changes that can be made to your website. Someone can even inadvertently make that change where they screw up your mobile friendliness, and that ruins not only your customer's experience and your conversion rates, but also the visits you're getting. We've had a couple of people even call us to say, hey, I'm midway through a project with this web company. They, launched it, and something happened with our mobile website, and they can't fix it. Can you fix it? And that's such a tough experience to go through for any business owner, especially with so much traffic coming from the web. So if you're not sure if you're mobile friendly, the fastest way to do it is pull up your website on your mobile phone. I would recommend actually doing it not while you're connected to Wi-Fi, so you can see the speed experience as well, so you get 2 for 1. But if you want to do it from the comfort of your desktop, you can head over to Google and search mobile-friendly test. It works just like the Pagespeed Insights. You'll actually get a result that looks something like this. So here is actually a college, I'm not going to mention which one, that actually still doesn't have a mobile-friendly site. I took this screenshot a couple weeks ago, and still in 2017, their website is not mobile-friendly, even though every single student they have has a mobile phone, which is, to me, silly. All right, so let's quickly wrap up mobile friendliness. The first one is you're expected to be mobile friendly, especially with more than 2/3 of the traffic coming from mobile and tablet. And I can't wait for the 2017 numbers to come out because they're going to continue to inch up higher. What we saw in our analysis is that 24% of those 2,000 websites we looked at aren't mobile friendly. So there's a small chance that you may be in that category. You've got to test and address mobile friendliness today. If you're not sure, do a quick test on your phone or use Google's mobile friendly tester, and then implement any recommendations they have. And so importantly is track, test, tweak, and repeat that. Make sure that your website's mobile friendly. Check it, once a month. Set yourself a little reminder because it's so important to make sure that's happening because it can be screwed up. If you're in our landscape that every member of your competitive landscape has a mobile-friendly website, stakes are even higher. So it's important to just constantly be checking that, or again, work with a partner who is. All right, so this last one is a little bit new for most people. And really, we're going to talk about website security. And I'm not talking about back-end website security like what Equifax is dealing with. I want to talk about front-end website security. And so for us, we really look at what we call HTTPS, or using an SSL certificate. If you're unfamiliar with this, this is where when you load a website up, it looks like this, HTTPS in front, and you get the full website in there. A non-secure website looks something like this. And so on the left side, you get this little green lock, which is great from a user experience standpoint to say, hey, we're a trustworthy connection. And on the right, as of right now, you're just going to get a little gray eye icon. And there's 2 impacts here. One, again, is getting you more visits. We're going to talk about that in a second. And the second one is improving your customer experience and getting more conversions out of it. Now, I hate to say it, but this is looming, is what's going to happen in the next version of Google Chrome and the next version of Firefox, which are set to launch here within a month, is it's going to start to look like this if you don't have HTTPS. Your visitors are going to start to see a little red exclamation point. That's why it's important to get in front of this now. This has actually been as on Google's radar for a little over 8 to 9 months now. And we believe at Blue Corona that website security is going to go the same way that mobile friendliness did, where they made a lot of recommendations that you should go become mobile friendly, and all of a sudden they're going to make it a requirement. We believe the same exact thing is going to happen with website security. They've been making slow recommendations. All of a sudden it's going to be a requirement. Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox are both going to have these exclamation points to them. And so there's a lot of users on the web that you may not provide a satisfactory user experience for. So where do you even start here? So the first place to do that is to is to look at your phone or look at your website in a browser and see if it's HTTPS. One of the things that we've seen really in the last year and a half, we've tried to keep an eye on this, is just how much traffic is coming from secure websites. So if we look at a Google search result about a year ago, so this was actually on September 15th of last year, about 20 to 25% of the search results were HTTPS. Earlier this year in April, 40% were HTTPS, and that number is now 50%. So we're consistently seeing businesses step up to the plate, go secure, and get better rankings out of it. Better rankings equals more traffic, more leads, and more sales. So it's almost a no-brainer here. And what we saw in looking at those 2,000 companies is that 76% of them weren't HTTPS. So over 3/4 of them weren't. And what's really great about you guys all joining today is you could be on the cusp of being an early leader in applying this to your website and starting to see some great results out of it. We recommend it to every single one of our clients, and we've made a big push earlier this year to make that part of what they're doing. So as we look at it from a competitive landscape perspective, this is an example of what it looks like. So we're looking at, we've got a lot of little red locks, which means nobody here in this landscape is secure. So we've got 3 people who have mobile-friendly websites. Great. Company D is the laggard, no mobile-friendly, but nobody here is secure. So this is an opportunity for you, for your results, to be the landscape leader and be the first person to go secure. I'm going to talk about why that's important in 2 slides. On the flip side, you could be in a situation like this where everyone's secure. This goes back to always checking the mobile friendliness. There are some ways that some web companies will set up the HTTPS where it'll actually expire every 90 days. If that's the case that you're in, you could be set up for success and 91 days later not be set up for success if they're not constantly monitoring it. We always check ours, make sure they're up for a full year. But this is something, again, always be keeping an eye on. But you know, I'm not just going to show you that great. Google's got more, more of their search results are HTTPS, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to show you some real business impact. This is actually from us. So September of 2016, this really caught our attention pretty significantly. We saw and have been stating for a full year now, we think HTTPS is the way of mobile friendliness. Right there, we made our website secure at that very moment. That one activity increased our number of visits and our number of leads from our website by 30%. And it's not just for us that this happened, but it's for a big chunk of our clients have seen that kind of improvement, if not better. So there's a good chance that you can still be early enough to win out of this. Because as you can see, we're getting more and more of the search engine results pages are going to HTTPS pages. So the next time you go on Google, just take a second to search, HVAC your city or furnace repair your city. Just, again, we've got 10. How many of them are HTTPS? That's going to be a good indication for you of can you help win here. All right, so let's summarize what we've got here on website security. Number 1, we believe that HTTPS is the new mobile friendly, and that with only 24% of the websites that we've analyzed being secure, there's a big opportunity, if you aren't secure yet, to leap ahead of your competition. So I'm going to make a bold statement here that you just should convert to HTTPS. It's going to help your user experience. It's going to, if you have a contact form on your web page, that'll be the next place that Google's going to start to show that. So it's important for you to do that. And then you got to make sure you track, you test, you tweak, and repeat. Make sure that that SSL certificate is always in lockdown, or have a partner or web guy or whomever to help you make sure that your website security is always tight. Okay, so we covered a lot of ground here, so I want to cover just the key takeaways all one more time. First one, what we started with is that people are making decisions based on your website presence. And that's really why we like to do that summary digital competitive analysis to start to get an understanding of what is your website presence and how can we make wins out of it. Whether it's more customers, you want more employees, you want to work through some financial investment engagement, those decisions are being made on your web presence. So it's important to keep an eye on that. And that's why we created our summary level competitive framework to be able to navigate that well. And when we look to website speed, if your website takes longer than 3 seconds to load, there's a good chance you're going to have 40% or more of your customers abandoned. That's important for you to keep an eye on and check it. And what we saw in our analysis is that only 30% of websites are faster than 3 seconds. So there's a really good shot that your website does not load faster than 3 seconds. In terms of mobile friendliness, in 2016, 57% of traffic came from mobile. And in 2017, I can't wait to see those numbers because I know they'll have grown. What we saw in our analysis is that 24% of websites, almost a quarter, are still not mobile friendly. If you're in that camp, time to get mobile friendly. In terms of website security, we believe firmly that website security is the new mobile friendly. And what we've seen is that 76% of all those websites that we've analyzed aren't secure. So there's a big opportunity to catch up or big opportunity to go forward compared to your competition. And so for everybody who's attended our webinar today, I want to offer a digital competitive analysis for you and put one in your hands, where we not only look at your website's accessibility, but also your tracking analytics, your content, your search visibility, your social and reviews. They're 100% complimentary for ACCA members this year, and it's part of our sponsorship. There's no hard sales pitch. We just want to get this information in your hands because we know you'll take advantage of it. So if you want to do that, head over to https://bluecorona.com/ACCA. On that page, you're going to see a contact form in the middle of the page that's going to ask for some information from you. And what we'll do is we'll get that into our analysts queue. Our turnaround time right now is about a week. We had a pretty big deluge of requests come earlier this week. And so we'll get one of those back into your hands. I want to show you not only what's happening with your website accessibility, but all of those other parts. Okay, if you have any additional questions, feel free to email me directly. I'm Tyler@bluecorona.com. And with that, Brandon, I'll flip it back over to you for questions.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. Folks, if you've got a question, again, you can click in the little triangle next to the questions section of the GoToMeeting control panel. We have a couple. Looks like there's a couple more trickling in. So we'll go ahead and jump right in, Tyler. The first question says, and it looks like someone's already ahead of the game here. It says they tested their site speed before and it came in around 6 seconds, but yet the home page loads almost instantly. I guess what's the explanation behind that?
That's a really good question. That's a very sophisticated question. So what happens there is you probably have a great web partner who's actually set your website up so that most of the usability happens very quickly. That's one way to approach website speed. And then have additional things like tracking or any additional what are called scripts load as they need to as time goes on. So that's a really great way to approach it, where you're able to get best of both worlds, where your users can see the website very, very quickly. And this is actually something we do for our website, and then have everything else load as necessary that you might be dependent on that's elsewhere, that's not on your website's main server. So that's a really complicated answer, but that's the answer.
All right, we got another one also related to site speed. What's one thing I can quickly do to improve my website speed?
Image optimization. In those 2,000 websites that we analyzed, that is the most common issue that can be resolved with the biggest wins in terms of website speed. We call it the low-hanging fruit. It is, if you can optimize your website's images, just Google website image optimization. doing that is going to help dramatically increase your website speed. Just take a little bit of technical expertise there.
All right, we got one more. Will Google penalize me if I don't go secure?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I would necessarily say penalize. I think on the flip side, what they're doing, what we've seen is just promote other people who are secure. So, let's say you're in a number 8 spot right now, and 2 of your competitors, go secure. Well, then that's a good chance that they're gonna bump you down to a 10 or an 11. And so they're just showing preference to those who are secure. So we haven't seen anything where all of a sudden somebody gets wiped off the map because they aren't secure. But it is something where it just could slowly push you down.
All right, and then one final thing. Someone asked for the landing page URL again. Could you just repeat that for everyone really quickly,
Perfect.
Tyler?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. And I just totally realized I was a dodo in doing that. It's just bluecorona.com/ACCA. So right there, you're going to have everything.
All right, that wraps it up, Tyler. So everyone, thank you for attending today. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email Tyler directly at Tyler, Tyler, at bluecorona.com, or visit that landing page, bluecorona.com/ACCA. Again, that's bluecorona.com/ACCA. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.